Welcome to the Lift Your Story podcast with guest Nicole Spindler. Hi everyone, I am Lorianne. I am that gal from Milton, Ontario, Canada, and I'm with...
I am that guy. I am Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas. We'd like to welcome you to our Lift Your Story podcast.
In this episode, we're pleased to have Nicole Spindler, and she is an HR professional, and she's also the recent published author of Beyond Life Moments. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I just published my book in December of 2020, and it has been a dream in the making for the last 8 or 9 years. So my story really takes you on a journey of the last decade of my life and how my life really began in January 2012 when my dad was diagnosed with an extremely rare cancer, which is called O-factor neuroblastoma. And it is so rare that, one, he's believed to be one of the longest survivors of it. And there was only one doctor in the entire world that was willing to perform this surgery, was willing to kind of walk with us into the unknown, and is still kind of pioneering this area of research. And they happen to be, of all places, in my hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Wow.
And it's just very surreal. I still get goosebumps thinking about how just insane and just fortunate we were. And, back then being 15, although I was scared out of my mind and there was just so much uncertainty that laid ahead of us, I decided to view this kind of derailment or sudden plot twist in my life as transformational. I decided to view it as there has to be a reason why this is happening to us. Maybe it's going to teach me something. Maybe it's going to lead me towards my profession or my purpose or kind of even my passions. I just have to see it through. I just have to get beyond life's moments. So I kind of took this positive outlook kind of throughout my dad's recovery, even throughout to this very day, as it's very ongoing. And I also kind of dealt with it later on in other setbacks I've experienced as well. So my story kind of includes, my journey, as well as also several other people who I've had the greatest privilege of, knowing and being a part of my life, who've kind of experienced similar yet very different experiences as well.
Wow. 12 years old, no, 15
Yes.
years old.
Mm-hmm.
That was a pretty mature decision, I'm thinking.
I
For
would think,
somebody
I'm
that's
thinking
15. Yeah.
It was definitely, I think for me, it was just like, I always thought my family was perfect. I always thought, I lived this normal life, like nothing bad would ever happen to us. And then it was just my gut instinct. I didn't even cry. It just was my gut instinct was like, no, we can do this. When there's no quitting, there's no giving up, there's no falling victim. We will become victorious through this. I just kind of implemented that mindset. And that's kind of, has carried out throughout all kind of challenges that I face. But yeah, it's interesting how, even my parents are shocked how I kind of was always so positive about kind of, getting through these tough moments in our lives.
I would think that that's really important too. That positivity must have really helped your father as well, because I think one of the difficult things is, and just quickly, that I had a nephew, same thing. He had a very rare form of cancer. Unfortunately, he did not have that specialist that could help him through it, and he went and passed away. But during that time, he was always like, I don't want to see you cry. I want to have positive. I don't want to get well cards. I want to get some other cards when I'm in the hospital. And just a positive, he wanted, because he kept that positivity. He needed that around him as well. So I really commend you for that. And I think it really is really important. So, yeah. So you were saying that some of the other people in your book, you said that you had the privilege of meeting. Can you speak to some of those? Were some of them a little bit in that same capacity, having more difficult times in coping, or?
Yeah, so I would say in my entire book, there's about 30 individuals that I got to interview. And I would say a vast majority of them I know closely in my life. And several of them I kind of met organically as I was writing this book and trying to collect stories. some of these stories range from, there's, a girl I knew in college who actually had like open heart surgery when she was 11, to a sorority sister that I had who kind of grew up in an abusive household and lost her father to alcoholism. And I've even had another good friend of mine who kind of like had a lot of head-related trauma and was extremely burnt out at like 20 years old. Kind of a wide range of different setbacks, kind of different ages as well. But what I found through collecting these stories is, and kind of in connection with my own experiences, is how they not only found the positivity, not only found the ability to kind of get through to the next moment, but the way they were able to, and myself, the ways we've been able to kind of view our circumstances as transformative rather than traumatic. It's kind of led to our passions. It's led to our professions. It's even led to like, how someone like fell in love with someone, or it's led to like somebody like having their passion become their full-time job. It's really amazing how it's kind of this revolving door of opportunities that have opened up for people because they've been able to get through just, not just one, but multiple setbacks in their lives. So that's one thing that like I really loved about all my stories in connection to mine, is seeing this trend. And even publishing my book, and having people read it, it seems like it's a very common thing people, recognize if they take this positive mindset with dealing with challenges, that it has led to, not just joy and happiness, but it's led them to kind of greater and better things in their life.
It's interesting. You mentioned that this has led people into their passion. We've had several guests that have actually done that. Something happened and it was a transition to something totally different than they ever expected to do. And they were much happier because of it. So, yeah.
I can definitely say that for myself too. I can definitely say that because of what I went through with my dad, it has definitely directly led me to my passions and even what I do full time in HR.
How is your dad?
Doing really well. Yes. He's still going strong. Yes. It's so good that, he's had a very, surprisingly, the doctors have just been overwhelmed by his, courage to kind of go through this. And, it's definitely been a lot of ups and downs and a lot of kind of like twists and bends on our journey. But, I'm so glad that he's been doing better than, and surpassing all expectations or hypotheses and everything like that. So
do you think that your positive attitude helped him with that?
Absolutely. Oh yeah. I remember, yes, because I do remember, my dad, being his only daughter, and being home, and just, he told me, just promise me, like, you'll stay with me through all this, but like, he really just wanted me to focus on, school. And, back then I played lacrosse, like that's what he wanted me to do. And man, did I put like 110 million% effort into my school and into lacrosse. And, it got to the point where like seeing even though my dad, obviously was was very sick for a long time, like seeing me come home happy after like a successful lacrosse game, or like posting like a really great grade I got like on like a calculus test, or like and putting it on the fridge, like having those kind of moments and bringing those to him was kind of like shining light into the darkness a little bit for him. And I think that I 100% agree. I think just being able to try to have some sort of normalcy as possible, while also trying to be able to know that, hey, like despite all this, like I'm still happy, like I'm still good. Like, oh yeah, 100%. I think that really gave my dad the fire to fight, I think, for this.
And that light shined back on you as well, didn't
it? Yes, it did. It absolutely did.
Well, that's wonderful about the doctor. I mean, he must be just feeling wonderful too, having your dad as a successful patient to speak. I mean, that's got to give accolades to him, but obviously he must be giving huge accolades to your father too for his strength. And if you don't mind me asking, how about your mother? How has she been taken as well, and how have you affected her? disposition as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I was gonna say, in addition to my mom, I also have an older brother. And my older brother at the time was at college, and he kind of, I'll talk about him for a brief moment because I interviewed him in my book, and he talked about how he felt like his role was not having a role in our family circumstances because, my dad was diagnosed in January 2012. So my brother already left, like went back after the holidays, and my brother did not even see my dad until summer of June. So it was like after the surgery, after everything, like my brother kind of like, he was 3 hours away, like he couldn't come and visit, he didn't have a car, and he did feel very like left out. And I know to this day that does bother him a little bit that he couldn't be as involved as he wanted to be, but kind of like me, like my dad told him, like, just do well in school, like, just continue to put academics forward. And my brother ended up getting very involved in like kind of like Penn State, like, Buckeye-thons, like those dance marathons that like support kids with cancer. He got really involved in that at his university. So he kind of indirectly gave back to the cancer community. So I know my brother kind of found healing through that. And obviously, like after that situation, and finally when I told him what happened, with my dad and everything, like with our dad, like he really, I think our relationship kind of strengthened after this as well. And my mom, she's just like the rock of like our family. And she was always, even throughout my whole life, but especially during like this time with my dad, like she, again, kind of very similar, like she didn't want me to see that, they were crying, or didn't want me to, she didn't want me to feel like I missed out on like my high school experience or anything social. I remember like she would coordinate lacrosse practices or make sure I could get there. She would if I needed to have some extra time at school to do homework, like she would, make sure, connect with my teachers and make sure I was still doing well in those classes. She kind of just, she did everything. She wore so many hats, and, she cared for my dad at home for several months. And yet she was still my best friend and still like my role model, and was just the protector of our family. She kind of was the glue for us for like a really long time, and still is. So I think like having her role, like kind of considering her to be a role model, and having her kind of exemplify these ideals of resiliency, as well as also just gratitude and just kind of, like this perseverance. I think like just, it was so contagious. Like, I think just, being just, mother, daughter, I just kind of like took it all in. So yeah, I feel like definitely because of this experience, it strengthened my relationship with my brother, and it definitely also, made me realize just how much like, how unconditionally like I love my mom and my dad.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, the women are always the strongest. Always.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just are. I guess it's that maternal instinct they say, or whatever. I don't know, but the women do have the strength in bad times.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you had some issues with PTSD?
Yes, I did. Yes. So fast forwarding, obviously, because that was my freshman year of high school when I dealt with my dad's cancer. So when I went off to college, I overall kind of had a very normal, collegiate experience, and definitely considered it the best 4 years of my life. However, though, my senior year of college, I kind of was, winding down on my extracurricular activities I was so heavily involved in. Obviously, I, was going to graduate and get my undergrad degree. And I kind of went from having a purpose of, going to school, academics, being driven, and having that, goal that, of the past 8 years, to kind of waking up and realizing like, just, I felt like I didn't have, like, I had this free time in my mind, and I had almost too much time for my own self to like fall deep into the black hole of my mind, basically. And it was it kind of developed, how I kind of came about the PTSD was kind of like after towards the end of my like fall senior year, I actually like was experiencing a lot of anxiety, to the point that I actually had a panic attack. Went to the hospital, and after dealing at the hospital and talking with some counselors and stuff like that, about a few months later, then I was diagnosed with PTSD and also depression, just general depression. And I think the reason why that really developed, and it took a long time to realize why, but I think one was I really haven't, although like I view this experience as positive, and although I kind of, got to celebrate so many amazing things throughout this journey, I never fully got to like properly heal from it. I never had the right outlet or the opportunity to truly like convey every single deep thought that I had or every feeling I felt. I really didn't have, I guess, a true organic way to process all of it. It was just all in me still. And I, just felt so burdened that I just kind of felt like I just like dropped to my low, and I was slowly letting it like roll down a hill. And I didn't realize it until kind of after my senior year, kind of finally graduating, that I found that writing was kind of like the outlet for me to finally like be able to not only acknowledge it, but also like kind of in a very like physical process, just like let it out on the page. So definitely was a really tough journey to kind of process how I got diagnosed, and also working through it for day to day. But I found so much healing and also purpose in writing, to kind of overcome what I experienced over the course of the last 8 years.
I would imagine that though too, because I understand absolutely what you're saying about being the victor versus the victim, of being the positive and looking at gratitude and all of that. But there still is that component of the pain that you don't want to face, you don't want to digest, because you're saying, and it's not that it's a false positivity at all, but we're forgetting about that other side. So I can see how that would sort of like slowly pile up to the point where you did need that outlet. And I think that's wonderful about the writing. I do agree with what you're talking about, post-traumatic stress disorder, that part of it. If people have the ability to write, I do believe that that's an amazing outlet for thoughts being put down on words, and then you can read back on them and saying, yes, this is what I needed. So that's wonderful. But I do commend you though for that, constant positive. But you're absolutely right. If you had been aware of what was, transpiring beyond that, it may not have come to that. But on the other hand, as you look at the positives, is it initiated this writing capability of, so yeah.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because when you think of PTSD, your first thought are soldiers, and you have no idea that everyone could have PTSD. PTSD, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we were actually chatting about, we were just chatting about that just prior to you coming on board, is that it used to be for officers, correctional officers, police officers, soldiers, but there's a lot of people who do have that. And it's nice for you to talk about it, because it allows other people, whether it be your age, our age, or whatever, to say, you know what, this could be it. This could be what you're struggling with. And you're not thinking that because you're thinking it's impossible. I didn't go to war. I wasn't a cop.
Right.
But it's not just that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's definitely, I was gonna say, I remember like when they were telling me that too, I felt the same way. I was like, no, like, I mean, I didn't like, I'm not in that environment to be diagnosed with this, but it really is anything when you think about it. It's any unsettling or uncertain event that like kind of like just hits you to the very core being of who you are. Like it's like a mental, emotional, like physical shaking, like kind of that you experience. And in a way, yeah, like it definitely was it truly did make sense just because of the fact that it was, I lived in a town where this stuff was never, someone having cancer, like a family member, dealing with this, like it was unheard of, or like or it wasn't talked about. And like, and I think, yeah, although it was like in the moment, it was definitely the positive mindset that got me through the moments and got me where I am, but it was still, I kind of just felt like, kind of as I reflected on this experience, in my senior year of college, I did realize that like there has to be a way where like not only like I can heal from this, but like I can use my healing to help other people. And that's where I kind of have turned my passion for, how I turned my like love and interest to writing into a passion, into kind of like a side gig besides my job in HR. So I think it just proves to you that just amazing things can happen from and bloom kind of like in the midst of uncertainty and adversity.
I find that interesting too. Sorry, I was going to say, being with your experience and being in HR, that's great too, because of course with human resources also comes humanity and the people that are involved that you're dealing with every day. So it gives you a wider scope of understanding. So again, it's a positive move. As difficult as it was for you to go through, it's still also positive to the state to be able to relate to those aspects.
You said you were writing. Now, were you doing journaling or were you just writing your experiences as in the book?
Yeah, so I've always been a huge writer, mostly like in journaling and stuff like that. But where I actually saw writing come into a huge play, and realized that it kind of became more than just like an activity for me. It was definitely something I wanted to pursue full time, especially, I've had this dream of writing a book for like 8+ years, is whenever I was dealing with my dad's cancer, I was taking a class in high school and it was like a children's literature course. And like the final project was to write a book about, just for children. And like, I was like, I'm not in the mood to write about like butterfly gardens or anything like super fun. And my teacher kind of knew what I was going through. And she's like, well, why don't you like write about your experience, but like for the eyes of a child, like so that they can understand how to deal with this. So I ended up like taking on that task. And like, it was probably the one project where like so much tears and like heart went into it. But it ended up obviously, turning out really well, presented to my class, and then I ended up actually giving it to my dad for Father's Day that year. And I like gave it to him and like read it to him, and like I've only seen my dad cry like twice, and then that was one of them. But like just, that was like a way for me, even though I didn't like fully get to like express like 100% like every thought I had, it was at least a way or unique way to convey just two big things. One, acknowledge just how much we've been through, but also really tell my dad, hey, like, I'm so proud of your daughter. Like, even though like we went through this, like, it's not your fault. Like, I still love you, like, regardless. Like, and I'm proud to like have like walked through this with you. And like, he still has the book like by his nightstand to this day, but like, after kind of experiencing that and going through that, I realized just how much like my writing can like touch people's lives and stuff like that. And I realized the power of like the written story and stuff like that. And so that's kind of that moment really sparked my passion or my aspiration to write a book. And I think it was great timing, to be honest, that granted, I did not plan to write my book during 2020 during quarantine, but I think it was impeccable timing that I ended up writing it in 2020 after my post-grad experience and dealing with anxiety and stuff like that, and really seeing how my book really is the physical representation of all the growth that I've had over the years.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned your dad cried, because that was one of the questions I was going to ask you. I bet it made him cry when he got it, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's like you said, he's only cried 2 times, but those moments, I can tell you, they are so awesome as a dad.
Yes.
I can,
yeah, especially being his only daughter. Yes, 100%.
I think too, it's nice that you can tell the story because you are a young lady, and you hear a lot about post-traumatic stress disorder in older people. You know, it comes out, oh my goodness, you know, 20 years you've been struggling with this, 30 years you've been struggling with this. It's nice to, for you to deal with it while you're young, to have a fuller life as you get older. And if there's any challenge that come later on, you'll have a better understanding of it. And for young people out there to say, you know, yeah, if you're going through this, it's not a disease. It's not something bad to have it. The best thing you can do is to go through and get help for it. And like I said, so that your future years are going to be a lot better to live.
The sooner the better.
Yeah. So great admiration. And I think it's great for other young people to hear your story. Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
And you've had me teary-eyed half the time with yours, so by the way. This thing is, it's a very heart-filling story, definitely.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons why I wrote this book. And I think to your point, I think it really is I really want this book to be like a toolkit and an eye-opening experience. You know, because I even, you know, to this day, like, believe me, there's some stressors, even ones that seem so minor, where I catch myself going down this negative, you know, spiral, or like this victimization kind of, even for simple things. But like, because I've kind of embodied this mindset, I can catch myself and recognize it earlier, and being able to, you know, implement that in my own life and live out that, as well as also, you know, the main ideas in my book. And, you know, having this book be able to literally transcend the pages, you know, and my lessons and story to help others. I mean, that's just the ultimate dream. I mean, that's what I really hope people, you know, of all ages, not just my age, but like anyone older and younger than me, can really kind of take these and really apply them in their own life. Not just even in their, you know, most, you know, challenging trials in their lives, but even just in their day-to-day like life. You know, there's so many times where like we hear so many negative news. We always think about negative things, like just focus on the positive. Like, you know, it's weird to say, but we have hardwired our brains to automatically think negative when we, you know, so we kind of need to like unhardwire ourselves. And I do talk about that in my book, but yeah, I really just hope that this book, you know, and it has so far like really been a toolkit for those that are really just wanting to get unstuck in their life, to be honest.
That's funny. I had a friend that we were talking about that it seems inherent in human beings to, you know, even when you're riding in an elevator and you go, oh, the weather's horrible out there, isn't it? Like, as a person here, you go, can't you see something nice? You know, hey, you know, I was walking along and I saw this bird flying. It was gorgeous, even if it is raining. But no, we go with that. I just wanted to bring up something really, I had somebody tell me, which I thought was interesting. You're talking about anxieties and such, and I went through some my moments as well. And he said, you know, it's interesting when you go through your healing, just think of it, you know, you've got that box and there's a red ball in it, and it's filling that box. But over time, when you go for help, whether it's therapy, coach, or whatever, the ball becomes small. He says, so that ball is still going to be in the box, and sometimes it's going to bounce and hit a button. He says, but just always remember, it's small and it won't last. It's just going to pop up. And so I visualize that whenever I start to feel a little bit anxious. I go, it's just that little ball bouncing around. It's going to stop. So I thought it was a cute story, so I had to share that. But yeah.
So, Nicole, how can our listeners reach out to you, and also how can they get your book?
Yeah, absolutely. So my book is available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. So you can definitely check them out there. It's available in a Kindle ebook, is also in a paperback format. And then you can find me, just find, you know, Beyond Life's Moments. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. You can find me on there. I post some just really good content of what I'm doing, other speaking events, and just some really good like inspirational stuff for anyone that needs it.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, we appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit us at lifterstory.com.